today is written in your bulletin. It comes from the book of John, chapter 18, verses 33 through 37. First, I want to read to you just a little bit out of the book that I've been reading and preparing my sermons from, called Longing for Enough in a Culture of More. And he has this quote about religion. Religion is that yearning deep within us to move towards completion in all of life's dimensions, to see lives that are fulfilled and the world made whole. John 18, 33 through 37. Then Pilate entered the headquarters again, summoned Jesus and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Do you ask this on your own, or did others tell you about me?" And Pilate replied, "I'm not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priest have handed you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not from this world. If my kingdom were from this world, my followers would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not from here." And Pilate asked him, "So you are a king?" And Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." I came into the world to testify to the truth. I think it's important that as we think about the world that Jesus came into, that we have a little history lesson. I was a history major in college, and I love it, and I find it fascinating and wonderful. And if you don't, I'm sorry. But we're going to do just a little bit. In the year 42 BCE, Roman Senate voted that Julius Caesar was God. They elected him God. God among us, right? This world that Jesus was born into was rooted in this imperial ideology, which becomes a theology, because Caesar has now been voted divine. What happens when Julius Caesar dies is you have this leadership now. If he was God and he was divine, as voted by the Senate, who takes his place? Because we've run out of people who are divine, right? And so there were two people. The civil war in imperial Rome happened, and Caesar's adopted nephew, Octavian, he wants to be the ruler and the leader. But then you also have a military leader named Mark Antony. He leads a faction against Octavian. So then after that, you have a decade in the Mediterranean area of this civil war. So in the year 24 BCE, Octavian is the winner of the civil war. He is then voted Augustus. And the word Augustus means increased or Mr. Big, right? So he's voted Mr. Big Caesar, Augustus Caesar. He's the big cheese, right? Now they don't vote him to be God, but they vote him to be more than everyone else. He is increased in who he is. This promotion of the idea that someone could be the Son of God was not unusual when Jesus was born. So often we think that the whole concept that Jesus was Son of God was this radical thing, because in our culture we do not go around naming people the son or the daughter of God, right? They are not of God. They are not part human, part God, right? But Jesus is born into a culture where these rulers, and some of them are good rulers, and some of them, if you ever read the history, are horrible, evil, awful, demented people. But their role in the government is held in such esteem that they are like God. So you get this Pax Romana, or this peace of Rome that happens after 10 years of civil war. And this peace comes because of the military might. Garland, if you'll give us the next screen. So peace comes under Octavius, or the big cheese, Augustus Caesar, and military might leads to victory, and that victory leads to security, and that security leads to justice, and the justice leads to peace. This is the culture, right? Military might. Rome rules. They have taken in slaves. They have absorbed other cultures. They have spread across the region as this military might. And peace comes. But it comes at the hands of military might. Victory that leads to security. Security that leads to justice. And justice that leads to peace. And so you have coins that are minted that talk about Caesar being of God. You have statues everywhere. You have buildings that are built with sculptures. All of this culture that is saying that the rulers of Rome are like God. They actually use the term Lord, to lord over someone, to rule someone. It's so hard to wrap our heads around the fact that these same terms that we apply to Jesus now without thinking of the implications of a feudal society. We don't think about calling Christ a king when clearly even our youngest children understand that kings aren't good guys, right? That lords, that is not a term that gives us warm fuzzy feelings either, right? But yet now, in the evolution of Christianity, we've taken these very terms that Jesus fought against, this ideology and understanding, and we've applied them to the one that we call Son of God, right? To the one who said, it doesn't matter. Roman culture, I talked about this a few weeks ago, that when you ate, people lounged around the room, and that they were placed in their order based on their status in the community. So the more important you were, the closer you got to sit to the front. And Jesus said, we're all equal. None of this matters, right? You can see why people would think he was dangerous. To say slaves and free are equal. To treat the leper like they're still a human being. When our culture has sent them to live in caves and to be away and has treated them as already dead. The good news, the proclamation that Caesar is Lord is the gospel in that world. It is the truth. And all of the households funneled their money to their patrons, and their patrons sent the money to Caesar, and everybody functioned in this way. If you question the order, if you question this understanding of the way society was very divided into this hierarchy of value, you died. You committed treason. And because Caesar is Lord, it is also blasphemy. It is not just against the state, but it is against God. So public execution becomes a way of life. Jesus was not the only one to die on a cross. People were killed on crosses all the time, all across the empire. Sometimes the crosses were, as we know the cross to be in Jesus' case, upright. But there were also executions where people, to show they were even less honorable, would be upside down. And this developed this exceptional and many ways to end people's lives. The furthest that you could be away from God in this world is to be on the cross. Caesar is here. Treason and blasphemy is here. The lowest of the low and the highest of the high. And so we get Jesus. Jesus preaches a message that is centered around some pretty basic topics, right? If we wanted to sort of sum up the things that Jesus does and what he's about, is he's all about free food, right? There's always food at his gatherings. He multiplies food. There's always enough for everyone, right? He celebrates things with food. We know that he went to a wedding and multiplied the wine at the party when they ran out, right? He multiplies wine, he multiplies bread, he multiplies fish. My husband, for my birthday, gave me this card where Jesus is holding up the fishes and the loaves, and the crowd's asking questions like, is that gluten-free? You know, we live in a different world, right? Nobody says, is that okay for me to eat? Is it on my diet? Is it good enough? Right? They said, is there enough for me too? It's a whole different world. And so Jesus is all about free food. He also is a healer. Free healing. You have to, well, you may not know that at that time there were those who claimed to be healers, and you paid to be healed. Or you made a sacrifice monetarily or something of value for healing. And even in the Catholic Church, what happened before the Reformation, if you wanted to be healed, you paid or you made a sacrifice. They've built all these cathedrals all over Europe based on those who paid coin to be healed or to get someone they loved who'd already died into heaven and out of purgatory, right? Even in the early church, they missed the point. Jesus goes around healing people for free. He believes that as they gather and they eat, that everyone is of equal value. This kingdom that he talks about that is not of this world is radically different than the one that people lived in. He was dangerous because he told people they were good enough. He told people that even though this world says you are a slave of no value, I say God loves you. Right? Blasphemy. Treason. A kingdom of heaven. And when Jesus tells stories about the kingdom, he has all these fascinating parables. He says the kingdom is like a field that someone has gone in and during the night and it has weeds in it. What? The kingdom isn't perfect? There are weeds mixed in with the grain? What kind of story is that? He talks about the mustard seed, the smallest of all the seeds. And at that time, the mustard seed was really kind of an out-of-control weed. And he talks about it like it's important. Like our faith should be like the mustard seed, an out-of-control weed that grows and grows and grows. He tells the beautiful story about the woman who sows in the yeast into the dough. Well, for the people, the yeast, they don't want the yeast in there. That's a bad thing, but yet it gets mixed in with everything else. There's this mixing of the people. There's no status. There's no funnel of prioritizing with Caesar at the top or Jesus at the top. In Philippians 2:5, we get our earliest Christian hymn in the Bible that talks about equality with God cannot be achieved with force or might. This understanding that peace comes from the military is against everything that Jesus teaches. He teaches that justice, treating people as equals, having a community of love and acceptance, those are the things that lead to peace. Those are the things that can change the world. Is it just that they're too simple, that they're hard? Is fighting for justice among us, treating other people in a way that is just? I'm pretty sure I told you the story about my friends and I who were talking, and we said if we could have one thing, what would it be? And I said, a just world. And my friend Bob said, are you really sure that's what you would want? Because you benefit a lot by the fact that it is not a just world. I hadn't thought about it that way. But of course, if others are to have more, I'm to have less, right? If it was just. We have Caesar here. We have Jesus here. The King, the Son of God, proclaimed by the Senate of Rome. The King, the Son of God, proclaimed by the people who said, yes, I believe that God is making all things new. I believe that God is working and creating a world that is just, that peace is a possibility. What's so crazy is this, we still need this today. This week, when they presented the tree at the Vatican, and the Pope came out, he said this whole Christmas holiday is a charade. That the world is full of war and hate. And how can we celebrate peace and joy and hope in the midst of it? At this great celebration at the Vatican that everybody was all excited about, they had an 82-foot tree that came all the way from his home country. This pallor goes over the crowd. It sucks some of the joy because the Pope says, this is a charade. Our world is broken, and it is full of hate. What are you going to do about it?